More importantly, maybe just to emphasize just a few nugget points, they are going to touch on areas to do with inefficient or efficient tax system and the tax burden. They will look at maybe issues to do with the black market economy, issues to do with land and property rights. I know some of them, they have already been covered before. They also maybe look at issues to do with the border system, plastic money issues and technological issues, and how they are influencing the issue of the market economy. They will probably touch on other issues to do with supply shortages, issues to do with liquidity challenges, and a whole lot of other things that they will cover. But I want to emphasize that in doing so, they should just restrict themselves to about 8 minutes only. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this session, the first speaker is going to be Mr. T. Swanda. Mr. Swanda is a chartered accountant, and he was born and raised here in Bulawayo. He has more than 30 years of experience in running a public practice. He is currently a senior partner at Shumilian and Swanda. In addition, he sits on a number of boards for blue chip companies, and these include PPC, ICAZ, Insco Africa, Delta Corporation, and Padenga Holdings, among others. Maybe just to emphasize, he's also the current chair for the ICAZ board. He is passionate about cattle ranching and he has ranches in Matabeleland region. May I ask Mr. T. Swanda to come forward? The second speaker is going to be Mr. Todd Moyo. Ms. Moyo is a chartered accountant. He has over 30 years of experience covering fields such as finance, accounting, auditing, and taxation. He has also had hands-on experience in sales and marketing, production, public relations, and human resources. He is currently the chairman and CEO of DAT Labs. He is also currently the chairman of PPC Limited in Zimbabwe and National Foods. He has been exposed to various sectors of the economy as a non-executive director of various listed and non-listed companies in Zimbabwe and the region. He has served on various committees of other companies, including audit and risk, remuneration and HR, as well as nomination committees. He did his articles and qualified with EY in Bulawayo before moving into industry. He is married with 2 grown-up children. Our last speaker is going to be Mr. Dan Marandure. Mr. Dan is the CEO of Zoll Zimbabwe. He has spent extensive years in the USA providing value to large technological companies, Fortune 500 companies. Beginning his education at the University of Zimbabwe, Dan received a Bachelor of Business Studies honors degree. In his pursuit of a business career, he went on to attain an MBA in the USA. Before assuming his leadership role at Zoll Zimbabwe, Dan spent the last 12 years at Verizon Communication LLC. Verizon is the largest telecommunication technology company in the world, and it operates America's largest 4G light wireless networks and the nation's premier all-fiber broadband network. At Verizon FIOs, Dan worked his way through many analytical, upper-level management and executive positions at companies like IBM USA, IBM SA, Lucent Technologies, and PricewaterhouseCoopers. Dan is an avid golfer and is committed to CSR activities in the community. Dan Marandure has received numerous business accolades since his return to Zimbabwe, notably being marketing-oriented CEO of the year for 2 consecutive years, which is 2015 and 2016. This was done by the Marketers Association of Zimbabwe. Please help me welcome Mr. Dan Marandure. Without taking too much time, may I allow Mr. T. Swanda to come and do his presentations. Thank you.
I've got 8 minutes to share what I've got with me, but I've got an esteemed gentleman who I'm sure will also deal with some of the issues that, in my opinion, are to do with what is a free market economy. I was asking myself whether Zimbabwe is a free market economy, and I asked a few other people. I didn't get a straight answer. Everybody jumped to talking about, it can't be a free market economy when you could command this and command that. But I thought, as accountants, what we are basically saying is there has been change, and what are those issues that would help Zimbabwe become a real market economy or will assist, in attaining that objective. So my understanding of a free market economy is an economy that allocates resources to where they are most required and to where the returns can be maximized, and there is benefit for further reinvestment. You are educated people, and I'm sure you can decide for yourself whether what we are living here is a free market economy. I thought we could look at this by looking at, the issue of domestic debt as against the national debt, because the other debt is external, but it is the domestic debt that I thought, my attitude is we will have to go to the multilateral lending institutions and ask for assistance, and they will say what we need to do. But I thought there are certain issues that we can begin to work on now, to get us ready for the time when the economy can fly. And one of those is to tackle the national debt, the domestic debt, which I think the number is about 4.3 billion. What I've never been sure of is, what is included in that domestic debt number of 4.3 billion? Is the value of the improvements that government said they were going to pay included in that number or not? Who is the bright kid who can tell us? Is it included or it's not included? Because if it's not included, then that debt is much bigger than the 4.3 billion. There are other claims, that could arise that would probably kick that debt to an even higher number. What we know has happened is that in 2013, that debt was sitting at 200 million. And as I've said, it's now sitting at 4.3 billion. A lot of that money has gone to fund agriculture. There was something called Mariama projects, if you remember, during the days of somebody else. And I think a lot of that money has gone there. So what I thought would assist the country and government was to find a way of trying to, somebody's decided to be difficult. What can we assist, what can we do to assist our country? And I thought the commercialization of agricultural land as we know it would be one way of helping government reduce this debt. Government has said they will pay for improvements. They will not pay for the land. And I'm saying if they are prepared to pay for the improvements, why don't they take a first bond on each of these properties covering the improvements that are there, which they say they will compensate, and then leave the farmers that they have granted the land to be able to register second bond, third bonds, and what have you got, to borrow money to fund operations on these farms. Is that doable? I can't see why it's not doable. We've all been auditors, and we've seen, first, second, third, fourth, fifth bonds. But we talk about it, we don't do anything about it. And in my view, this would actually take from government the responsibility of having to fund agriculture, which they are doing currently through all these command, cattle command, whatever, which is what is responsible for the phenomenal debt rise. So that is one of the issues that I thought we could deal with. In the process of thinking about it, I said in market economies, land is titled, it's got title deeds. In Zimbabwe, we still have a lot of land that has got no title. And if you live in this part of the world and you go out to places like Plumtree, the amount of improvements that people have done there, the houses that they have built, some are double stories and all that type of thing, but all those houses have got no title. And I'm saying, as Zimbabweans, we need to begin to debate that, to say, shouldn't we title this rural land, you know, and give these people the capital in their pockets? When we talk empowerment, we talk real empowerment. I can't think of any reason why we are not doing it. The Kenyans, I think over the last 5 years, have issued almost 2 million title deeds, you know, on rural land. So we can do a pilot project, and then we will have land that is part of the market economy that we are talking about. It will benefit black people in particular because they will have assets right at the beginning. As already said by the speaker, I live in the southern part of the country. And in the southern part of the country, we've got some special national assets like your Great Zimbabwe, your Victoria Falls, the Matopos National Park, which people want to visit. And when I grew up, we used to see a lot of, you know, people driving in from South Africa to Victoria Falls, to Matopos, and to Great Zimbabwe. That doesn't happen that much anymore. And that was oiling the economies in these regions. And the problem is Beitbridge. And I'm saying, if we are going to say we are open for business, let's open Beitbridge for business. We could start by, you know, combining the road access fee, the toll fee, and, you know, all the other fees that are payable into the fuel levy, so that when people get to Beitbridge, they sit in their vehicles, they do all the customs formalities sitting in their motor vehicles, immigration, and off they drive to Victoria Falls. And I think we could attract a lot of visitors from, especially the northern section of South Africa. These are guys that normally have in their family 6, 7 kids, and they can't afford to fly to Victoria Falls. But I'm sure if it was possible to go through Beitbridge, they would all drive to Victoria Falls. And I think it would make a big difference to the economy in this part of the country. I may be wrong. And then, of course, I've already talked about the Beitbridge border post. Beitbridge is manned by ZIMRA, and of course there is the Department of Immigration. The list that was produced by the state president as being evidence of looting, I think was quite telling. It was telling as to the efficiency of ZIMRA. I worked at ZIMRA for about 1.5 years in the early 80s. And ZIMRA at that time were 2 departments. It had a Department of Taxes and it had Customs and Excise. Department of Taxes was manned by professionals who understood tax law and tax practice. They went for courses, they did all that. But I think when Mr. Passy, Gershom Passy, became commissioner, he just brought all that together. So they will this week get a person from Beitbridge and bring him to the assessment office here. And this is why we've seen the development of this trait of wanting to collect irrespective of what the law says. Where the accruals principle is being thrown out of the window, you can't accrue leave pay, you can't accrue bonuses in determining your taxable income. Certain charges, technical fees, royalties, and all that type of thing are being disallowed, and you are supposed to show proof that, you know, the royalty is actually due and payable. Why have you paid it for so long? Why, you know? That to me is a symptom of a department that is crying for overhaul, reform, and as we know, it is the face of Zimbabwe. Investors will have to deal with that department. And I would suggest that the way to go is to go back to the old setup, have the assessment offices, and have customs and exercise as two separate departments, and retrain those people so that we don't have that list of obviously not acquitted export forms or import forms. That's all that you could read from that list. I had quite a number of people that I knew who were in that situation. So I think that requires reform. The other one, that I'm not a politician, don't misunderstand me, but I think part of the problem in Zimbabwe, why we have not succeeded as we wish to succeed, is this centralization of power. I'm advocating a system of decentralization of the collection and distribution of taxes. I know a country like Canada has it, where you collect taxes here in Bulawayo or in Masvingo, 70% of the taxes remain there. 30% goes to national government. Then you empower the guys locally to get on with development and implementation of projects. Not this current situation where all taxes are going to one pool in Harare, and boy, they never come back. I think it's something that we really need to think about. As I was going through these things, somebody said, well, can you tell us where we could start, with these issues? And I said, I've got a keen interest in education. I've spent a lot of my time looking at matters to do with education. And I said, at Independence, we had Education Director Matt North, Education Director South. The Education Director North looked after your Harare, Mashonaland East, Mashonaland West, Mashonaland Central, and Harare town. The Education Director Matt South looked after your Midlands, your Masvingo, Matt South, Matt North, Bulawayo, and there are two deputy directors below them. One was in charge of staff issues, budget issues, and general management. The other one was dealing with matters to do with education standards and what have you got. You didn't have these 10 provincial PD offices that we now have, all staffed by people who all have, all sorts of motor vehicles, all sorts of benefits. I don't think we were poorly educated compared to you who were educated after Zimbabwe. Those of us who were educated before, I think we were as well educated as you. But I think the education budget was focused on providing books, on providing teachers in the classroom. And I'm sure we could go back to that model and we will thin down the amount of expenditure that we are putting on people. Why am I saying that? When I joined government at the tax offices, I said we used to have a typing pool. So whatever you did, you took it to the typing pool. That was before all these laptops and everything that you've got. Now we've invested in laptops. We've invested in fiber optic, countrywide. Surely if you deploy education inspectors in each of these districts and with their laptops, they should be able to do their work and file their reports either to Bulawayo or to Harare, and action is taken. Why have we not taken advantage of that to try and trim our costs? To me, that is what would make us a winning economy. I'm sure we've all heard, Moele Mbegi's thoughts on one issue, where he said the general manager of China Railways, the whole country, is on a total package of $3,500 per month. We all know what we are each drawing per month and what it does to the cost of the country. I'll leave it there, Chairman.
Hey, what shall we say, after all these significant contributions from this man. Right, I know we've got hard-burning questions, most of us here, but let's just park those questions a bit until all the presenters have presented. Ms. Moyo, it's over to you. You are free to present from where you are. Yes, there's a mic.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's not out of disrespect that I'm sitting down. I had to struggle coming here. I twisted my back and had difficulty in moving. So I just thought I could not lose this opportunity to talk to you. So I did manage to come out of bed today to be here with you. The subject we were given is market economies. And as I was looking at this subject, after I had done my presentation, yesterday, as I was sitting down looking at it and finalizing it, I've got a son who was doing his BCom last year and is doing his BCom at the moment, so he's with me. So I gave him this topic of what is market economies and how can you differentiate with demand economies. And, you know, I thought I was actually clever. I'd actually written quite a good paper, so I thought. And he just told me everything that I had written. And then my wife was coming out of the bedroom and I asked her the same question. She says, how can you ask me something which is so simple? Is it what you're going to talk about? And I was actually thinking, you know, with these bright accountants sitting in front of me and these business people, am I going to go there and talk about what is a market economy and a command economy? So I did my presentation in a different way so that whatever happens, and you should know, having three presenters as well, you don't know what they're going to talk about. So I've actually tried to do a varied contribution. And I appreciate what Themba is saying. And I'll just touch on a few characteristics of the market economies and the command economies and say, where are we going as Zimbabwe? What is good for us? I saw once a joke that was written about a young kid in school. And they asked him they asked the class to write about Jesus and Satan. This guy had obviously read his homework about Jesus and forgot to do his homework on Satan. So he wrote on his paper, he wrote a lot about Jesus. Then he realized he had run out of time. Then he just wrote, I have no time for Satan. I would have liked you to say I have no time for command economy, but I was going to speak about the market economy. But please allow me to talk about both. And I'm going to refer maybe in my presentation to a few people who are sitting here. I think I saw Dumsan Spanda. When I did my presentation initially, I had stolen something which you had done on the cost drivers in the economy, and something which you had done about the costing of ZESA tariffs. I remember talking to you about things like affordability index and all those things. And I'm glad I didn't, because I didn't know you're going to be here. You're going to raise your hand and say you are plagiarizing. But allow me to say a few things. We know what the market economy is, and we can give you the descriptions of those. I think in the morning you did talk about property rights. They are very important, I should actually say. As Themba has said, I'm also not a politician, but I say things as they are. That's why maybe I've been a visitor to the state institution at Dunnington. I don't know, for those of you who come from Harare, there are nice cells called Dunnington Police Station. During the price of National Price Control, which is a command economy, and I think my friend Dumsani was actually in the committee there. I was actually taken there for a nice visit because somebody thought I had actually sold something at a price that the government didn't agree with. It's the same with these property rights. It's been discovered that in countries where you have property rights, you will find that the economies tend to grow at a faster rate. I had actually raised empirical evidence here, but I'm not going to bore you with that because I understand it was covered in the morning. The rule of law, and what do we mean about the rule of law? These are some of the things that we need to know about to actually determine whether we are in a command economy, whether we're in a market-free economy. The freedom to contract with other people, that is very important as well. You do have centralized economies, and some centralized economies typically, they seem to have to be accompanied with political repression. Those are some of the issues that I wanted to talk to you about. We are busy at the moment saying Zimbabwe is open for business. I saw something interesting in the paper today which says, I think it's our famous Themba Mliswa, who says it's also open for criminals. So we need actually to be careful in an open market economy that we are actually careful of these things. I do work also in the neighboring country. I see my local MD is here, and when I get into South Africa, they forget that I'm on their board. They think I'm the MD of the PPC in Zimbabwe, and they start asking me questions. We are saying Zimbabwe is open for business. Mr. Moyo, where are our dividends? We declared $20 million dividends last year. You haven't been able to give it to us. But you are calling us to come in and invest in Zimbabwe. How are we going to get our dividends out? We've given your Zimbabwean company $40 million worth of credit for spares and other materials. They are not able to pay us. You know, those are the situations where I feel like I'm like Mr. Masian over there, you know, without his good salary. And, you know, you have to answer those. Those are the things people are asking. If you in Zimbabwe are already having problems getting money out of Zimbabwe, getting Forex to pay us, you are calling us to come in and invest in Zimbabwe, and yet the people who are already there are having difficulties. How can you convince us to come in? Those are the realities we have actually to look at. And I looked also at a few things that a few foundations are considering, to consider whether an economy is more of a market-free economy or a command economy. And they consider, like Heritage and Fraser indices, they consider equality in the nation. They consider corruption. What are the levels of corruption? They consider political, social, and economic violence. Economic violence is what maybe I started with. If somebody says we have produced something, it's cost you $10, and they come and ask you to sell it for $7.50, say, but I can't cover my costs. And they say that is the price that you will sell it. The collective bargaining freedom, I think we still got that in Zimbabwe. And they consider other things like monetary freedom, the freedom to go to the bank and get what you put in. Is it there? Themba talked about the government size, the size of the government expenditures. I'm going to jump a few things here because I've only been given 8 minutes. The size of the government. At the moment, I think we are spending about 80% or more on salaries in our expenditure. That is clearly not the way that we should be going. We should actually be looking at reducing those expenditure to manageable levels. The freedom of contract. Are we free to go into any business that we want? I don't know how you guys in Harare came in today, but being based in Bulawayo, I have to go to Harare often. I'm rushing to a board meeting which starts at 9. As Zimbabwe says they will leave at 7:30. I'm there promptly at 6:30. And as Zimbabwe tells me they will be leaving 2 hours after the deadline. The fact that is Zimbabwe's problem that I haven't got to Harare It's not a problem to them. But to the people in Harare, they say Mr. Moyo is a person who cannot be relied on. Why do we have Air Zimbabwe as the only company that actually does the Harare to Bulawayo route? There are many other companies that you can actually, you've got Jet and all those other companies. Why are we constricting them from coming to Bulawayo? Are we a command economy? The corruption that we have seen, are we seriously attacking corruption as it should be attacked? The collective bargaining freedom, are we having proper collective bargaining when it comes to wages? Our legal structures, and I see David has just come in, and security of property rights. Are you sure, as we are sitting here, that the property rights you have maybe to your house, you might be sitting in your house that you don't own. Yes, you paid for it. But our lawyers these days, Mr. Coltert, you find they've helped somebody actually deprive you of your house without you knowing. Temba talked about the regulations that we have. Are they not too excessive? The regulation on labor, the regulation on business. Look at the number of taxes that we are talking about. The freedom of expression, the ease of doing business. Have you ever tried registering a company in Zimbabwe and then start going from one body to the other? You have to go to the investment center if you're coming from outside. You have to prepare to pay tax duties, set taxes, VAT, road levy, carbon tax, toll gates, NASA standards levy, local and rural authority rates. Temba says a farmer, my farmer as well. You want to sell your cattle, you have to pay something to the authorities. The authorities, like the rural authorities, they came the other day and said I owe them 10,000 in rates. But I can't even get to the farm. I have to use the bush to get to my farm. They haven't done any roads, but they expect me to pay those roads. Otherwise, they're going to take my tractor and sell it. We have got so many taxes in Zimbabwe. And Temba, as Temba was saying, why don't you get into Bridge? You actually get there, you pay your duties, you put all these other charges in the fuel levy so that you can actually just drive in without having to pay all these things. And I was actually saying, looking at all these other expenses that we pay, the IMA fees, airport fees, operator's license, tender fees, license renewals, why don't you actually think of a way of combining these things and make them one? As I was thinking about all these things, I thought of this song which says, "Who shall serve the human race? Who shall serve the nation?" I don't know who actually sang that song, but maybe we're getting there. Thank you to the changes that we're actually currently seeing. Some of the changes are promising. I was going to touch on a few, but allow me to just jump a few and maybe just give you a personal case study. Whilst I do not subscribe to the command economy, there are times that it is necessary. And I think you'll agree with me in Zimbabwe that we have got a combination of both. There is a statutory instrument which was called SI 64 of 2016. It's now, I think, being combined into SI 122 of 2018. We were one of the companies that were fortunate to be affected by this statutory instrument because we were competing with companies from outside. I had an outside company that had given me a license to manufacture their product. Their product was actually contributing about 56% of my sales and about 63% of my margins. And what happened is they just decided they would actually withdraw the licensing and manufacture in South Africa and sell into Zimbabwe at a much lower price. Because I had negotiated with them to say, can I do the same product, but with a different branding? And they knew that we could not actually match the costs that they were doing it in South Africa. They're selling to the whole of South Africa, the whole of Kenya, the whole of Tanzania. So they knew that they would come here and undercut us. So we were struggling. We could not make ends meet. And in came in SI64 of 2016, after we had done a lot of marketing. And you know, that actually changed the fortunes of the company. We had people we were thinking of laying and sending back home because our costs had escalated. But because of this SI64, I'm talking about the command economy now. It actually did save us. Because of SI64, we managed to change the whole complexion of the company totally, not only for the personal care business that we have. We are also a pharmaceutical company, and we are supposed to be investing almost in every year on new pieces of equipment. We could not do that because we were not making, great profits. But once we got SI64 on our side, we were able to generate the much needed cash flow. We were able to actually buy machinery. And we are actually thinking of now resuscitating a factory that we had closed in 2006. But, all I'm trying to say, this was a command economy which says you shall not bring this product into Zimbabwe. Let the local manufacturer do it. So I'm saying there are plus and cons of the market economy and the command economy. And as far as I see Zimbabwe, we are doing a bit of both. But as long as we can choose what is good for us, I think we can actually continue with the strategy of having a market economy which has got a bit of a command economy. Not a lot of it, but a bit of it. So those are the issues that I thought I would share with you. I'm sorry to rush. I was told I was going to talk for 15 minutes. And when I came in, I was told that I would do 8 minutes. I think I've tried with my 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moyo. So much contribution from you. I'm sure the House is going to have an opportunity to interrogate some of the issues. Mr. Marandure, it's over to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Institute of Chartered Accountants, thank you very much for inviting me here. When I grew up, I wanted to be a chartered accountant, but I didn't have the brains. So I decided to do otherwise. They say the definition of an accountant, someone who can help you solve a problem you didn't know you had in a way that you can understand. And then the last one, it says, accountants make good lovers. You know why? They are good with figures. So, anyway, you've heard my background. And I want to acknowledge Mr. David Colted. It's good to see you in person. I know we've spoken over the phone before. He's one of my good customers as well. I want to talk to you about data revolution. You see that slide that's there, says data, then there's information, then there's knowledge, then there's insight. I mean, people who work with data like myself, we always want to differentiate the difference between data and information. I don't know if you guys know the difference between data and information. This is what we call the DIKI pyramid. Data is commonly understood to be a collection of individual items, such as text and numbers. Your phone number on its own is data. See what happens. Within a company, it is something that's typically close to the IT function, and it's managed by IT professionals who are traditionally concerned with the physical storage and security of the data. But data then moves into information. How does that work? If you give me your phone number, and then I attach it, I marry it to your name, right? So it's processed and analyzed, and we identify the meaning of it. It becomes information, right? Then further up the pyramid, knowledge is the domain of those in business who can structure and interpret this information. And ultimately, it leads to insight and the ability to make relevant, appropriate business decisions. So if you didn't know what data, information, knowledge, insight, there is a big difference. Data is your phone number alone. When you put your name to it, you marry the two, it becomes information. But what does that information translate to? It translates to knowledge. Because now when I look at, see who you call, where you call, what you use it for, it becomes information. And then it becomes insight. So right now, the world is awash with data. Every time someone walks down the street with his mobile phone, every time a satellite orbits the Earth, every time a product with a barcode is loaded or offloaded from a truck or a ship, data is created. That can be, and increasingly so, poured over, analyzed, and examined for patterns and insights. We are seeing the rapid emergence of what might be called the data economy. If we think of the agricultural revolution, followed by the industrial revolution, followed by the service revolution, I declare to you, ladies and gentlemen, we are living through the data revolution. The data revolution is the idea of the moment, calling data the new oil of the digital economy. Oil facilitated the industrial revolution in the 19th century. And in a similar way, data has become an essential resource of the digital economy in the 21st century, bringing tremendous benefits to business and to society at large. But like oil, data is seldom used in its raw form. Like I told you, your phone number alone is in its raw form. I can't use it. So like oil, data cannot be used in its raw form. It needs to undergo a number of transformations in order to create and generate value. If not stored and treated with due care and diligence, data too can cause massive problems, as data leaks can be highly toxic and very expensive to contain. We have had issues in the paper every time you read, oh, data was leaked from this bank, and so many customers' information was compromised. Okay, that is data that was leaked, and it becomes highly toxic and expensive to contain. So the role of data in the modern world is changing in a most dramatic way. The changes, their speed and scale, as well as their impact on almost every aspect of daily life are so significant that the term data revolution is being used ever more frequently, and rightly so. As was the case with the first two industrial revolutions, the data revolution has been facilitated by technology, most importantly by rapid advancement of various computer-related technologies and by the development of internet and mobile data networks. Naturally, modern business has been very quick to take advantage of the new opportunities, demanding electronic forms of data and data-driven processes. As a result, working with electronic data is now firmly established as one of the key functions of modern business. This applies to companies of all sizes in all sectors of the economy all over the world. The data revolution causes huge shifts in the data landscape. In the data economy, companies like Google, Facebook are able to make money by organizing this data so that the individuals can benefit from the organization of this data to make it easy, but data is then able to be sold. Most of you have heard of this term. If it's free on the internet, then you are the product. Data can no longer be seen as the byproduct of the IT system, much as oil cannot be viewed as something that is secondary to wells and pipelines. We need to change our perception of the relationship between data and information technology. IT and the support of the business have to be viewed from a data-centric perspective. It is very important to be aware of the key current and future trends related to data revolution. One such trend is a sharp increase in the volumes and complexity of data, facilitated by the relentless growth of digital technology of people's daily lives. and by the emerging technologies related to the Internet of Things. Increasing volumes and complexity of data generated globally are increasing exponentially because of the relentless growth of digital technologies in people's lives. You've got books, news, music, photos, movies, and purchases made both online and offline. All manner of conversations that you have on email, on social media. Recently, also, what happened to the chairman of Telecel, right? Those are conversation data that's leaked. VoIP calls, insurance policies, health and employment taxes. The list goes on. Now we're in the middle of a new kind of convergence, this time between digital world and the physical environment. You can see the disruptive effects of this everywhere you look. We have digitalized books, we have digitalized music, we have digitalized photos, we have digitalized money. When you send money by EcoCard, that's digitalized money. All of a sudden, Google now is a car company. Cars nowadays are computers on wheels. Every car has got lock this, you can navigate everywhere. That's a computer on wheels. Wearable devices can count your steps, your calories, the number of hours you sleep, and the quality of that sleep. Your cell phone can turn on lights in your house. They can start your air conditioning, control your security system, and let you watch your kids from miles away. The potential for improving customers' lives is very tremendous. So, ladies and gentlemen, I declare to you, we are in the data revolution. Similar when industrial revolution started, oil was the lifeblood of that revolution. Right now, as I speak, data is the lifeblood of the digital revolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Marandure. Very much appreciated. Let me declare and say this session is now open for questions. Let's just have maybe 3 or 4 questions just to clarify 1 or 2 issues. Thank you. Ms. Makaya? Yeah, Ms. Makaya.
Hello? Okay. Interestingly, I have a question for you, Ms. Marandre, right away. Ms. Marandre, how accurate is Google data? Because you see, as business, we refer to Google and so forth. How accurate is that data? Would you say that's data or information? We are not, because we see the incremental loading of that type of data. The second point I need to make is, I go to Mr. Moyo. Mr. Moyo, again, very wonderful presentation, but there's one point I want to make. It's not a question, but I don't know how you can add on to that. You raised an insightful comment on the opening of the country to business. That you alluded to the fact that in doing so, let's also be very careful that we are opening the country to criminals. Actually, if one was very careful there, you would not pick that up. But that's a very insightful comment. That as we open the country for business, we should be very, very careful not to open it for criminals, because some are saying there's an allegation that already the economy has been opened for criminals, and some see criminals have taken advantage of what's happening in the country. So I thought you could add on to that and give us more insight in terms of what we can do, particularly those who are in the account profession, how we can help the new dispensation in terms of keeping criminals out of the country. Then, Mrs. Banda, you advocate clearly from your presentation that you advocate for devolution of power. And I must say that also talks to the Constitution, that there has to be devolution of power. But there is an outcry from government in terms of how they can implement devolution or decentralization in face of the rigid labor laws that we see in the country, where if you decentralize, it has got effects of reducing, and in some cases adding labor to the entire process. And also I must advise that ICAZ was requested to put together a paper that touches on devolution from a business perspective. Those are my contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Makaya. Mr. Zana has got a question there. Okay. May I allow the panelists to tackle the questions?
I'll answer you the Google question. How accurate is Google? I would just say it's the next best thing we have, because Google doesn't, it collects information. Like every time you use your social media, your whatever, it collects information without you knowing. But as far as I know, everywhere you go now, even employees, before they hire you, sometimes they want to Google you. If you had now the term Google me, other people actually wear t-shirts that says, I don't need Google. My wife knows it all. But the thing is, Google is as accurate to a point where it has caused problems in the US election. Now they're accusing Google information of having made Donald Trump the president. So it might not be perfect, but it's accurate enough to actually make people, raise their eyebrows. Because if you Google your name, you see what comes up. Some of it is true. Why? Because, it collects information. People volunteer information unknowingly, and then it's put up there. That's why you see people calling you to say, when you log in, you see, if you bought something from somewhere, they'll start sending you similar stuff. Shows you. When you signed up for Zoho or whatever, you see Zoho following you everywhere, all our adverts. Why? Because it's accurate. It's taken from somewhere.
Thank you, President. Just a few comments on criminal activities coming in. We have been isolated for quite a long time, and we've been cushioned from some of the trading activities that happened in the international world. You'll find now we are trying to equip our factories, buying new machinery. And I know of one company that paid, I think they call it a loom in the textile industry. Quite a huge amount, because we're excited, we're open for business, we want to bring in new machinery. You talk to these guys, they are there for you, they are on the internet, you can actually send emails to them. And because of our risk, they do ask that we pay up front before they can send goods to us. And lo and behold, you pay your precious foreign currency. Suddenly a company that was there on Google and everywhere, it just disappears. You phone the bank that paid them, say, but somebody must have come, you must have put this money into somebody's account, you must have their addresses, and all you get are blank replies. So those are some of the things that we have to be careful of. There are many cunning people out there. I was sitting in my office one day when I was actually phoned by someone from the United States, in fact it was from Canada. And they were saying one lady had come to the police station to report that he had been conned by Mr. Todd Moyo, who is actually based in Gaborone in Botswana. She had actually been depositing some funds. She was an old lady who was on a pension. She had some huge funds that she had got. She went into the internet, saw this company which was giving some very good interest rates, went in and deposited the money, and every time she wanted her money, she was promised more higher interest rates. And she kept on renewing that deposit. She kept on adding that deposit. So the next thing, I think I live quite a humble and simple life. I don't expect to see policemen coming to my office to talk to me. But suddenly, here was a very senior policeman on the IT side, Mr. Marandor, saying they want to speak to me. And the thing which actually still irritates me up to now is if you go to that site, you'll find my name there. I'm a lawyer to this company. And they picked up my photograph from one of the companies that I'm a board member to. Quite a nice picture where we asked to come with our suits and our best ties. And they put it in there. And I look after the legal section. and the investments of this bank, you will never imagine, but this bank has got a proper site. They've got proper business cards. And you even fill in form when you need credit. You even fill in forms when you want to access money, or when we want to actually put investment. It's got a physical address. It doesn't exist in Botswana. And, obviously it was a scam, but they picked up my name from one of the companies here in Zimbabwe with a picture, gave me a different name, gave my picture a different name in that company. I can't remember what it was called, but there was another picture with a toad moil. So I was misrepresented twice, in photo and in description. They obviously found that I've almost been a professional non-executive director in my life, that I'm known to so many executives. And if they saw that bank, people would fall for it. And they did fall for it. When I found the number that was in that internet profile, there was actually a guy at the end of the line who answered me. And he was answering from Lagos in Nigeria. How he had done that so that the calls go to, you phone a Botswana number, you get answered in Nigeria, but all the details relate to the Botswana business. So I'm saying those things are there. So in the end, I defrauded this old lady in Canada $20,000, and the police wanted to question me. Those are some of the things you have to be careful of. We put all these nice photos, Makaya, about your partnership and these nice guys who have just passed their final exams. People are able to pick those things up and make issues out of it. So let's be careful, guys, when we are trading out there. There are vouchers out there waiting to feed on us, and they know we've been out for long. And maybe people like Marandoreye can actually help us on the IT side get out of that. Thank you very much.
Makai, I'm not sure I actually got what your question was. Was it government is worried about the cost of provincial? I'm deliberately avoiding devolution because it's politically toxic in this country, even though the constitution of the country provides for that.
You see, the issue is among his government officials, they see the benefits of decentralizing, right, of government activities. And if you also see they are picking from a number of European countries that are under the same arrangement, where, for example, as you have said, you collect local rates like the city of, in fact, no, let's talk about government levies. Those that are collected here in Bulawayo, 70% of that revenue is retained and 30% is sent across to central government. They want to follow that kind of a business model. And what I was just saying was, in fact, was a comment, not necessarily a question, that they are late to that, but what they want is for sectorial institutions like ZITF, ICAZ, to come in and assist in terms of how that can easily be achieved. That's what I said.
Okay, so it was a comment.
Yes, it was.
Yes, because when I was speaking, I probably didn't dwell a lot on that. You know, I've lived in Bulawayo all my life. And I think those of you who have lived in Zimbabwe used to hear about how well run Bulawayo as a city was. That was when we were collecting our motor vehicle licenses. We were doing all the licensing. We had our own power, electricity, that we were selling. And of course, we were supplying our own water. I think the water one is the only one that is now left. All the other sources of revenue were taken away. So all of a sudden, a city which had proper roads, had reasonable housing, is no longer able to deliver anything to its residents. We now have new township developments that have got no ZESA. And I think the reason was the councillors were close to the people that had voted them in, so they were accountable to them. they were accountable for how they spent our money. The current governance model that I think we've been on as a country since 1980 makes politicians unaccountable to the electorate. They are accountable to their parties. And that's what I'm saying needs to change. We need, you've got children that go to school and you attend those meetings, you rub shoulders with the parents. And if you are not delivering, boy, they open terms on you. That's what I think we need to do, to actually, let me conclude by saying, I think that is what self-determination was all about, which is what we all fought for.
Thank you very much, our dear presenters. I think in the interest of time, may I call upon the next chairperson to come and chair the next session. Thank you.